It was raining that morning. I looked out the window. The sky was gray. The street was empty. I felt something strange. I did not know why, but my hands were cold. Peter was still in bed. He looked tired. I walked into the room. I said his name. He opened his eyes. He gave me a small smile. I smiled back. But my heart was not calm. That was the last morning. I did not know it then. I only knew I wanted more time. I wanted one more day with him. Just one more. My name is Helen. I am 36 years old. I live in San Francisco. I lived there with my husband, Peter. We were married for 8 years. Our life was simple, but we were happy. Peter worked in a small train yard. He fixed the wheels. He cleaned the floors. He worked with tools. His hands were always dirty, but his heart was clean. He was a good man. I worked in a local shop. I sold fruit and milk. I did not earn much, but I liked the work. I liked talking to people. I liked coming home to Peter. We did not have a big house. It had 1 bedroom and a small kitchen, but Peter liked it. He said it felt warm. He said, "This is our home." I agreed. I always felt safe with him. Peter was kind to everyone. He helped our old neighbor carry bags. He gave his seat on the bus. He talked to people on the street. They liked him. They always smiled at him. We did not have children. I could not have a baby. I cried many nights. I said, "I am sorry." But Peter just smiled. He said, "You are my family. That is enough for me." He liked toast with butter. He drank hot tea every evening. He watched old films with slow music. He did not like loud things. He said, "Peace is better than noise." Every weekend we walked in the park. We did not speak much. We just held hands. Sometimes he told me small jokes. I laughed even if they were bad. I just liked to hear his voice. Peter was never angry, not even once. He listened to me. He waited when I was sad. He held my hand. He said, "I am here." One day in spring, he came home early. He looked pale. I asked, "Are you okay?" He said, "I just feel tired." I gave him tea. He drank it slowly. He did not finish it. That night he slept early. I watched him. His face looked different. His hands were cold. I put a blanket on him. I kissed his head. In the morning, he stayed in bed. He said, "I cannot go to work." I said, "You must see a doctor," he said. "Maybe later." He smiled, but his smile was weak. Days passed. He ate less food. He spoke less. He walked slower. I asked him many times, "Please, go to the clinic." He said, "I will. I promise." But he did not go. One day, he fell in the kitchen. He was standing, then he dropped a spoon. Then he sat on the floor. I ran to him. He looked at me and said, "I feel strange." I helped him stand. I made him sit in a chair. I gave him water. I said, "Now we go." No more waiting. He did not argue. He just nodded. We went to the small health center. The nurse asked questions. Peter tried to answer, but his voice was soft. They took his blood. They told us to wait for the doctor. The doctor came in after some time. He was quiet. He looked at Peter. Then he looked at me. He said, "We need more tests. Something is not right." Peter looked at me. He said nothing, but I saw worry in his eyes. I held his hand. I said, "I am with you." We came back the next day. They did many tests. I waited in the hall. I looked at the floor. I watched the clock. I prayed for good news. The doctor called us into his room. He sat down. His face was not happy. He said, "Peter is very sick. He has a problem inside. It will not go away." I asked, "Can you fix it?" He said, "We will try medicine, but we cannot stop it. It is too late." I looked at Peter. He looked down. He said, "How long?" The doctor said, "Some weeks, maybe a little more." We walked home slowly. Peter did not speak. I did not cry. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to help him. From that day, he stayed at home. I did not go to work. I stayed with him. We ate simple food. I helped him dress. I helped him move. His body was weak, but he still smiled. Every day was shorter. Every night was quiet. Some days he just slept. Other days we talked. He told me about his dreams. He told me, "I am not afraid." I sat next to him. I read books to him. I played soft music. I made him tea. He drank small sips. I gave him blankets. I gave him my time. It was all I could give. One evening we sat by the window. The sun was red. The air was soft. Peter looked at me. He said, "Thank you for this life." I said, "Thank you for your love." He closed his eyes. He held my hand. That night he asked, "Will you stay with me?" I said, "Always." I helped him into bed. I gave him more pillows. I kissed his head. He looked at me one last time. He said, "Goodbye." His voice was quiet. His eyes were soft. Then he closed them. He did not open them again. I sat there. I did not move. I touched his hand. It was still. I waited. I hoped. But I knew. He was gone. Before I share the rest of my story, I need to know, where are you listening from? Knowing someone hears me, understands me, gives me strength. The next morning, I opened my eyes. The bed was cold. Peter was not there. I turned my head. His pillow was empty. I remembered the night. I remembered his last word. He said goodbye. I sat up. The room was quiet. The sky outside was gray. The street was wet. I looked at Peter's chair. He used to sit there, but now it was just a chair. I walked to the kitchen. I picked up the cup he used. It still had tea inside. I touched the cup. I held it in my hands. My eyes were full of tears. I did not eat. I did not drink. I just sat there. The clock ticked. The phone rang. But I did not move. Later, someone knocked on the door. It was Peter's friend from work. His name was John. He looked at me. He said, "Is Peter home?" I looked at him. I said, "Peter is gone." John stood still. He said nothing. He looked down. Then he said, "He was a good man." I said, "Yes. He was my whole world." John sat with me. We did not speak much. He brought some bread and milk. He said, "You must eat." I said, "Not now." After he left, I went to our room. Peter's shirt was on the chair. I picked it up. I held it close. It still smelled like him. I lay on the bed. I closed my eyes. I saw his face. I heard his voice. But he was not there. He was never coming back. Days passed. The world kept moving, but I felt like I was standing still. People came to see me. They said, "I am sorry." They brought food. They said kind words, but no one could fix my pain. At night, I cried. I cried into my pillow. I held Peter's shirt. I talked to him. I said, "Why did you leave? I need you." I started to clean the house. I cleaned the table, the windows, the floor. I opened Peter's drawer. Inside was his watch, his pen, and a small photo of us. I sat down and cried again. The photo was from last summer. We were in the park. He had his arm around me. We were both smiling. I touched the picture and said, "Come back, just for one more smile." One morning, I opened the window. The sun was out. I took a deep breath. The air was fresh. It was the first nice day in many weeks. I walked to the park. It was quiet. I sat on our old bench. Peter used to sit here beside me. I looked at the trees. The wind moved the leaves. It felt like he was near me. A woman sat on the next bench. She looked at me and smiled. She said, "You look tired." I said, "My husband just passed away." She said, "I am sorry. I lost my husband too." We talked for a long time. Her name was Betty. She was kind. She said, "It hurts, but it gets better. Slowly." I said, "I don't know how to feel better." She said, "Start with small steps." I walked home. I made tea. I drank all of it. That was the first time in days. I opened the window. The room felt fresh. I put away the extra pillows. I folded Peter's blanket. I cried as I did it, but I did it. Each day, I did one small thing. I washed clothes. I watered the plant. I cleaned the mirror. I cooked rice. Little by little, I started to move again. But the pain was still there. At night, I still talked to Peter. I told him about my day. I said, "I went to the shop." I said, "I saw a child laugh." I said, "I miss you." One night, I had a dream. Peter was there. He looked well. He smiled at me. He said, "You are strong, Helen. You will be okay." Then he walked away. I called his name. He turned and waved. Then I woke up. I sat up in bed. My eyes were full of tears, but I felt warm. I felt a little strong. I started to go for walks. I went to the park more. I sat on our bench. I talked to Betty again. She smiled and said, "I'm glad to see you outside." I told her about Peter. I told her about our walks, his jokes, his tea. She listened. She said, "He sounds like a good man." I said, "He was the best." One afternoon, I walked by the sea. Peter loved this place. He liked to watch the water. I sat on a rock. I looked at the waves. I said, "Peter, I miss you every day." A child ran past me. He laughed. His mother called, "Slow down." I smiled a little. I thought, life goes on. I started to write small things on paper, not letters, just short words. Buy milk. Take a walk. Call John. It helped me remember. It helped me move forward. One day, I saw a couple in the park. The man helped the woman tie her shoe. I watched them. I felt happy and sad at the same time. I thought of Peter. I thought of our walks, our talks, our quiet evenings. I whispered, "Thank you." Weeks turned into months. I still felt pain, but now I also felt peace. Some days were hard, but some days were okay. I made a small photo frame. I put our picture inside. I placed it on the table. I lit a candle next to it. Every morning, I looked at it. I said, "Good morning, Peter." He was not here, but he was not gone. Not from my heart, not from my days. I woke up early. The house was quiet. I made tea. I sat near the window. The sun was coming up. It was cold, but the light was soft. I looked at the photo on the table. It was a photo of Peter. He was smiling in the picture. I smiled too, but my heart still felt heavy. I touched the frame. I said, "Good morning, Peter." It had been many weeks, but I still talked to him. I still missed him. I missed his voice. I missed his hand. I missed his smile. Some days were better. Some days were still hard. But I was trying. I put on my coat and walked outside. The air was cold. I walked to the park. I passed the old shop. Peter liked the bread there. I looked at the door, then kept walking. At the park, I sat on the bench. It was the same bench we always used. I sat alone now, but I felt close to him. The trees were green again. The sky was blue. A child ran past me. His mother followed. She smiled at me. I smiled back. For one moment, I felt light. I looked at the sky and said, "I am still here, Peter." A woman sat beside me. It was Betty. She was kind. She lost her husband too. She said, "It is a nice day." I said, "Yes, I like the sun." She looked at me and said, "You look stronger today." I said, "I think I am getting better." She smiled and said, "I am happy to hear that." I walked home in the afternoon. I passed a flower stand. Peter used to buy me flowers. I bought one small white flower. I placed it on the table near his photo. I said, "This is for you." I made soup for dinner. It was simple. Just carrots and rice. I ate slowly. I looked at the chair across from me. It was empty, but I did not feel alone. I felt quiet. I felt calm. After dinner, I washed the dishes. I cleaned the table. I turned off the lights. I sat on the bed and held his shirt. I closed my eyes. I thought about his last words. He said goodbye. I will never forget that. The next day, I went to the small store near the station. I needed eggs and bread. The woman at the counter knew Peter. She asked, "How are you, Helen?" I said, "I'm okay. Thank you." She said, "Peter was a good man." I said, "Yes, he was." I walked home with the bag. I passed two young people holding hands. I watched them for a second. I remembered my time with Peter. I did not cry. I felt warm. I was lucky to have his love. I sat on the sofa. I looked at our photo again. I said, "I miss you, but I'm trying." I picked up a small box. Inside was his watch and his old keys. I touched them gently. I held the watch in my hand. It was quiet, like the house. That weekend, I went to the sea. Peter loved the sea. I sat on a bench near the water. The waves moved slowly. The sky was soft gray. A boy threw a stone into the water. He laughed. I smiled. An older man sat next to me. He looked at the sea and said, "My wife liked this place." I said, "My husband did too." He nodded. He said, "It still hurts." I said, "Yes, but I still come here. It helps." He looked at me and said, "That is brave." I said, "Thank you." I walked back slowly. The street was quiet. The lights in the houses were warm. I passed a bakery. Peter and I never went in, but we always smelled the bread. I stopped. I closed my eyes. The smell was the same. At home, I made tea. I placed it on the table. I sat and looked around. It was the same house, but everything felt different. I lived in the same place, but now I lived a different life, a life without Peter. Still, I was not empty. I had our memories. I had his love. I said, "You are not here, but I still feel you." I started reading short books again, just small ones. I read them at night. I kept the light on longer. It helped me sleep. I cleaned the house more often. I walked to the market every other day. I even opened the window in the morning. I did not talk much to people, but I smiled more. I helped an old woman cross the street. I picked up a bag for someone at the store. I said thank you. I said please. I felt more like myself again. One evening, I sat on the bed. I looked out the window. The moon was high. The stars were bright. I whispered, "Peter, I love you. I always will." I did not cry that night. I felt peace. I felt light. I still talk to him every morning. I say good morning. I tell him if it is raining. I tell him when I see something nice. I tell him when I feel strong. I tell him when I feel weak. I still share my days with him. He is not in the house, but he is still with me. He is in the chair he liked. He is in the flower I buy. He is in the sky. He is in my heart. Peter said goodbye, but he did not leave me. Not really. Love does not go. Love stays. I will live my life with his love beside me. I will walk slowly. I will speak kindly. I will help others, just like he did, because he loved me, and I loved him. That will never change. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. More emotional and inspiring stories are coming soon.